Hello everyone, welcome to the Evil Empire. I'm your host, Evil Empire, and this week's feature is Blue-White Auras. This is the deck I used to get to Mythic for the first time in this season, January 2021. I found the deck on the ArenaCraft podcast Discord. Their historic deck list channel was posted there by Asus Full Moon 64. So big thanks to that user for posting that list for everybody to see and kind of learn from what they had done with it. I guess that person had been holding it down in the higher numbers of Mythic, around like 150 or so. They had been playing it, so it's a pretty well-suited deck to Best of 1 in Historic for a number of reasons. First of all, the Jumpstart set was a really monumental watershed event for the Historic format, and Core Spirit Dancer being in that set allowed this deck to begin to sort of take shape back in around the month of July and August of 2020. And so when it was joined later by SRAM Senior Edificer, when they released Kaladesh Remastered back in, I think, mid-August, whenever that was released, this really brought out a new side to the deck, because now all of a sudden it has as many as 8 of these draw engines that you could put on the board and start really racking up cards with. So the ability to get 2 of them on the board at the same time is much greater when you have as many to choose from. And the reason for only going with 7 total, a split between 4 Core Spirit Dancer, which is by far the better one, because of the ability to get +2/+2 for each aura, and then splitting that together with 3 SRAM, is because with SRAM, he's legendary, so you can only play 1 of him at a time. So just hedging a little bit against that legendary downside, which the new modal DFC cards that are legendaries, like Valky and a couple other ones, those are really great because that kind of helps to mitigate the downside of the legendary cards that you have in your deck. You can't play them more than once usually. So gets around that downside that we see here with SRAM, and the way that I'm getting around it in deck building is just trimming 1 off the top. And we don't really miss the 8th of these effect, and we really don't like having to draw multiple of SRAM because he's very dead later in the game. The usual set of auras, just kind of the usual suspects, and then the one thing that you might think is a little bit different from most decks, and this is Aces Full Moon's addition to the deck, Fae of Wishes as a way to be able to go grab something from the sideboard. Certainly we have a lot of targets here, but also what I've mainly used the Fae for is it's just another good body, and it really does well when you put auras on it. It can start to add up pretty quickly with Fae of Wishes. So that's actually helped me out more than I thought it would. There have definitely been some times where I've wanted to go grab a Light of Hope or an Unsummon, or maybe even just a Graph Digger's Cage to stop like the Neostorm deck, or even just to stop Collected Company. So that's Blue-White Auras. It's a very standard fixture in the historic Best of 1 queues, and there's no reason that if I can get to Mythic with this deck, you can't too. So one thing that I'll talk about later in the outro is the mana base a little bit more, because I think Hengegate Pathway being in the format now is an interesting choice, so we'll have to think more about that later. But otherwise, let's watch the road to Mythic. Alright, so going up against Tybalt's Trickery deck here. Big shout out to Aces Full Moon 64 on the ArenaCraft podcast Discord for tweeting, for sharing this list. Got me up to Mythic rank. So this is a very keepable hand. We've got the Selfless Savior and the Core Spirit Dancer to try to get around things. Alright. So, Zaggoth Triome, and now on their second turn they have a Stomping Ground tapped. Stonecoil for 0. And Tybalt's Trickery. Mill 2. So, Genesis Ultimatum, first Ultimatum. What do they hit? Alright, so 3 land and an Ulamog. Yeah. Yeah, that's not gonna feel good. Gonna play this out because I guess I'm technically still Arcane Flight isn't out. Alcide's not going to work as an out because Alcide doesn't give us the ability to give it protection from a colorless creature. It has to be a color creature to have the protection that Alcide can provide, so that's definitely not an out. They're going to play Blood Crypt tapped and pass after hitting us for 10. Ulamog. This is just a wild game. I don't know why I was playing it out. Okay, so all the glitters. Targeting Core Spirit Dancer, sure. You can. I mean, that's technically a legal play, but it doesn't matter. Nothing matters, right? They had turned to Ulamog off the ultimatum, so attack because why not? Get them down to 11. At least we can tax their life total a little bit, make them sweat. See, I think that probably the smart thing to do was just give up, but at least we made them work for it a little with their very silly deck. Okay, second ultimatum is an Emergent ultimatum. So basically 5 color, or well, not quite, so 4 color, right? Non-white. This deck is 4 color non-white. Essica, Omniscience, Sandworm Convergence. They're going to go for the Prismatic Bridge off the back of the Essica if we let them have it. Gonna take the Omniscience here because we don't want them casting their spells for 0 mana. Feels bad. Feels very bad. There's no right choices, only wrong choices here. But yeah, so they get the Sandworm Convergence. Arcane Flight is no longer an out. And the Prismatic Bridge off the back of Essica. And then go to end step without attacking, make a 5/5. I guess the opponent is playing around Heliod's Punishment here, is the idea. So Sentinel's Eyes, target the Core Spirit Dancer, just because maybe, you know. Yeah, okay, so the plan at this point is to try to destroy the Sandworm Convergence on my turn 5 next turn with the granted half of Fae of Wishes going for a Light of Hope. But even that's a pretty bad plan. It is really only useful in wasting the opponent's time. Alright, so no attacking would means that Curious Obsession goes bye-bye. They hit off the bridge pretty poorly with the Stone Coil there. Third ultimatum, another Genesis ultimatum. Two lands, 2 to hand. These ultimatums are just ramping them through the roof. Pretty much a million mana, it feels like, here to R5. So this is going to be the turn where we try to destroy Sandworm Convergence, but it's going to be too little too late. Okay, so paging through the sideboard, finding something that just doesn't exist here. There's nothing in here that's going to get us back into it. You know, maybe one way we could have would be to... So one way we could have maybe gotten through this was to, like, wait until our turn 6 and then granted for the Ether Tunnel. That might have been a way for us to win, but it's pretty much a moot point. Alright, so Emergent is now the 4th ultimatum that they've cast this game. So Talpa Omniscience, Sandworm Convergence. Choose the Zatalpa to make that go away, but they get Omniscience and Convergence. So, their spells cost 0 mana. 4th ultimatum. 5th? I can't remember. It just doesn't matter. Yeah, I think this is the 5th, actually. Okay, get an Essica, a couple lands, and a card to hand. That card was 6th ultimatum. Another Genesis ultimatum. Hitting Zatalpa, Omniscience, Convergence. They have 3 Convergence in this deck. 3 8-drops. Alright, so Ulamog attacks, exiles the rest of our library. And that's going to do it. Alright, next game. Let's see how things go this time. I mean, it can only be better, really, than that. 6 ultimatums. Okay. So, we've got a very keepable hand. Perfect hand. We've even got a backup to our Core Spirit Dancer with the SRAM there. And the Selfless Slaver to protect it, so that feels good. Now, opponent plays Swamp. Opponent goes Bloodchief's Thirst on the Selfless Savior. Draw another Selfless Savior. This time it enters tapped with the Hollow Fountain and Selfless Savior again. Fatal Push on the Selfless Savior. Opponent now on 2 mana with a Blooming Marsh. Glacial Fortress for us and SRAM into Sentinel's Eyes. At this point, I'm going to play the SRAM out first because I have a feeling they're just going to hit it with another Fatal Push. But we at least get to draw a card off the Sentinel's Eyes. Yep, so we still get our card draw trigger, Hallowed Fountain. Okay, so keep developing our lands, feels good. Swamp for the opponent. Thoughtseize, take the Core Spirit Dancer. Yeah, okay. Down to 18 for the opponent. And pass the turn with 2 mana up. Play Island, buy Lurrus. And they are going to go ahead and untap with 3. Quick graveyard check. They're still all there. All the good cards are still there. Alright, so we need to play Lurrus and get something good out of the yard. So we're going to go ahead and do the Lurrus thing. And now it's going to give us a Selfless Savior. Alright, so they Assassin's Trophy the Lurrus. Go grab a Plains. Sentinel's Eyes, target Selfless Spirit, exile Selfless Savior, and SRAM. Oh, sorry, I said Selfless Spirit. It's Selfless Savior. They're definitely very different cards. Okay. So, Fatal Push on the Savior. Untap with 4. Blooming Marsh tapped pass. Alright, now we're just going to kind of top deck back and forth for a minute. Top deck wars. So, Pathway on green. Basically continuing to top deck. Now, okay, we've top decked one of the better cards we can top deck, which is Fae. But what's Fae gonna get us? Anything good? Anything good here? I think the best thing we can get for this moment is to Fairy. And just wait until next turn. Play the Fae out on the backside. We don't have the ability of the Fae up, so I'm gonna just go ahead and play Sentinel's Eyes on it, exiling Selfless Savior and Lurrus. We don't have any way to get them back anyway, so. Alright, so that resolves finally. And on the end step, another fatal push maybe? No. Okay. So, opponent now on 6. They're going to Maelstrom Pulse the Fae. Alright, so Teferi plus.
This isn't
Draw
a
a
fight.
card, beginning of the end step, untap. Assassin's Trophy again. Boy, this
That didn't
person's
go
just like
according to
removal
plan.
tribal, huh? Yeah,
We
they
need
just
to
keep
move
ramping me
quickly.
too with that Assassin's Trophy, and so we're gonna be able to, because of that ramping, we're gonna be able to play Spirit Dancer and a Sentinel's Eyes because of the fact that our opponent ramped us.
Let me know if you're up for round 2.
So what do they have here? So untap these two. Pretty much right back where we started here with the opponent. Alright, Thoughtseize, gonna cost them 2 life. That's kind of all I care about here. They're gonna take a Staggering Insight. Yeah, that makes sense. Like, you know, prevent us from the life gain. Scavenging Ooze. Eats the Fae of Wishes, gain a life, go to 17, put a counter on the Ooze. Boy, look at all this removal, jeez. Like 10 removal spells, it feels like. Alright, pass it back to me. I draw exactly the card that I need to in Arcane Flight. But I'm going to start with like, all that glitters here. Draw Staggering Insight. We have plenty of mana to play all of these. Thanks to Assassin's Trophy ramping us. So now we're going to slow play the Arcane Flight. I'm going to play out everything else first. And give them a minute to think about, you know, how many times they thought they were going to remove our creature. Might as well play out SRAM because, you know, we just drew it. So, hey, go ahead and do that. Give them a minute. Just give them a quick pause. Just let them think. This is going to really increase the rage scoop. The tilt factor will be at maximum right now. Yeah, that was pretty predictable. The rage scoop is real. On to Diamond, Tier 1, Notch 1. Alright, next match. Let's see what we get paired up against. Childish. Yeah, this should be fine. We have a SRAM and a bunch of auras. Alright, so I'm gonna lead off on... They're gonna lead off on Forest, Llanowar Elves. I'm gonna lead off on Island. So, opponent on 3 mana on turn 2 has an Elvish Visionary. Draw a card. Alright, well the Spirit Dancer was a really good draw. We need that. Next turn, probably SRAM, and then play an Aura, draw 2 cards. Hoping to move in for a turn 4 kill. Perhaps. Alright, so Tyvar Kell makes all of their elves tap for a mana, untap Llanowar elves, put a counter, it gets Death Touch. Gwendolyn's Elite. Okay, so Arcane Flight, target Core Spirit Dancer. Just reading over Tyvar here again, considering whether or not I want to go in and attack it. Alright. Pretty much decided to just go at the face here. Just all of it at the face. Alright, another cartouche on there. Yeah, just gonna ignore Tyvar. Feels like the right strategy here. Alright, opponent on 8 mana. Okay, so collected company. What do they hit? Okay, the reach is a huge problem. Elvish Warmaster, I'm not too concerned about. Okay, so untap the one of our elves.
Like the cosmos serpent.
Iron Caller. Attack for 7. Go to 12. Planes. Now the reach makes it tough. Can't actually win this turn because of the reach. So hoping to get another Arcane Flight here. Alright, another Spirit Dancer is pretty good. Yeah, I'm actually going to cancel attacks here. Alright, lose the Curious Obsession because of no attacks. Alright, so they've got a lot of mana here, but the problem with using their creatures for mana is they need to attack with their creatures here. So go grab another Clan Caller, make an elf. They have a lot of power and toughness they can attack with here. So that's what they're going to end up doing, trying to get as much beef down range as they can. When someone has a childish name like this, like Nips, it makes me want to beat them even more. Tyvar untaps, puts another counter, gives Death Touch. So, here come attacks. You got a big old honkin' elf. Four elf attacker. Anybody else want to join the party? 4/4 attacker there. 3/3, 3/3. 3/4. 4/4. Is that lethal? Not quite. Leave the reach blocker back. Eat with that. Eat the 3/3 there. Eat the 4/4 War Master. Trade the SRAM for the big old honkin' elf. Oh yeah, that elf got up to 6/6 somehow. Oh yeah, because of all the other pumps that are on it, yeah. The 2 Clan Callers. The War Master. Oh no, just the 2 Clan Callers, okay. Alright, so all the glitters on Core Spirit Dancer. And we have the Alseid, which was the draw that we exactly needed. Give it pro green, swing in and beat the Tyvar Elves deck. Not terribly impressed by Tyvar here. He was easily ignorable, right? And they did not have anywhere to dump all that mana. Alright, here we go. Getting really close. 2 more wins away. 2 more notches on the rank belt. Alright. So, gonna mulligan that first one because it only had one land. Put back one of the 2-mana auras. The Heliod's Punishment, play Hengegate Pathway on Mistgate. So play Hengegate on blue, the Mistgate side. Opponent, turn 1, plays Stomping Ground tap. Pass the turn. Turn 2, planes into SRAM. Assuming that they're going to have something to take care of our first creature with. Whether that's a Fatal Push or Claim the Firstborn or whatever it will be. Okay, so Priest of Forgotten Gods, pass the turn. And Core Spirit Dancer, Arcane Flight on the SRAM. Okay, attack the SRAM, get in for 3. Alright, so what do they have? They have some way to, like, steal our SRAM, play a creature, kill Core Spirit Dancer. That'd be a pretty big blowout. Witch's Oven. Okay, that's not a creature. Claim the SRAM. Attack me for 3. Put SRAM in the oven? That feels bad. You shouldn't put a dwarf in the oven. That's wrong. Just plain rude. Alright, so Hollowed Fountain untapped. Go to 15. Play Staggering Insight. Play Heliod's Punishment on their Priest. If they had a creature in hand and elected not to play it, they are getting uber punished by this Heliod's Punishment. So Core Spirit Dancer makes it such that we are definitely going to get in here and gain 3, draw a card, put them at 14. So we've got them on the back foot. They tap to take a counter off, take one of the task counters off of the punishment. Okay, Crag Crown Pathway on red. Selfless Savior. If they had any kind of Fatal Push, they're going to have to use it before this comes in. They don't have it. Curious Obsession. So you gotta figure they have a company up here, right? That's what they have to have if they don't have the Fatal Push. So let's just make it as big as it can be so that it's not in any danger to anything that they might play off their company. Alright, so Curious Obsession. We've still got more. Jeez. Alright, another Sentinel's Eyes. Just keeps on coming. Never runs out of gas. And another Curious Obsession. Alright, so next turn. Oh god, look at all that. Got like 15 different lines of text. Yeah, so collected. Okay, they hit 1 Dreadhorde Butcher. So that means they get to block and kill our Selfless Savior? Sure. Hope you feel good. Probably doesn't. Probably doesn't feel great. Alright. So take another task counter off. Opponent, Dragon Skull Summit, Priest of Forgotten Gods, and Mayhem Devil. Alright, so now it's more a question of what are we going to do to get around this. So first things first. Get something from the sideboard. Unsummon is probably going to be the pick here. Ether Tunnel would be the best, but we don't have the extra mana. We didn't draw the extra mana to do it. Now, Grafdigger's Cage is a consideration because it does shut down company, but probably just going to go ahead with the unsummon on, and then it's a question of what do you unsummon, right? What do you want them to block with? Because they have to block to defend the lethal attack, so we want them to block with Mayhem Devil. We're going to unsummon the Priest. That way the Priest comes in and has Summoning Sickness and can't activate right away. And when they try to take the final task counter off the priest, it's going to end up tapped as well, which means they're not going to be able to use its ability. So they're going to block with Mayhem Devil and sack it to the Witch's Oven. Of course, Spirit Dancer deals no damage. And that's that. Alright. Alright, so I'm one game away from Mythic at this point. I need this one to get in. So, difficult to keep because it doesn't have Core Spirit Dancer or SRAM, but it does have Fae of Wishes into Staggering Insight, so we're guaranteed a couple extra cards off of that at least. Having all the glitters is another way that you can kind of tell this hand needs to be kept. It's just got too much upside. Alright, so drawing the third land feels good. We're just going to go ahead and play the Fae of Wishes with the big butt here. The 4 toughness is huge against Gruul. They're playing Bonecrusher Giant or maybe Domri's Ambush at the outside. Obviously you have more to worry from Domri's Ambush, but if their removal is Bonecrusher, then you're in good shape with the Fae. So Hengegate on the white half of it. Staggering Insight, target the Fae of Wishes. Arcane Flight, target the Fae of Wishes to make the all the glitters better next turn. Attack into Voltaic Brawler. Draw a Hollowed Fountain, pass back. So, the opponent's going to be attacking with the Voltaic Brawler. They're going to make it a 4-3 trample with the paying of 1 energy for the low price of 1 energy. Burning Tree Emissary into Rampaging Ferocidon's a problem. We'd like to gain more life than we currently have, but okay, so attack with the Brawler, make it a 4-3, no block. Take 4 down to 17. And all the glitters. And Staggering Insight, I think. Okay. I'm not going to gain any life, but we'll draw a fair few cards. Draw 2 off of that. Alright, we're feeling pretty good about our chances here. Yeah. We've got them next turn. Okay, so they're on 4 mana with 1 energy. Collected. What does collected hit? If it's a Spellbreaker that they're going to give haste to and an Llanowar Elves. Deal themselves 2 damage off the Ferocidon. Attack with everything. It's not lethal, but we're going to block anyway on the Burning Tree Emissary. So yeah, they're attacking with like 2 shy of lethal here. Attacking with 6, 9, 12. 3 shy of lethal they were attacking with. Alright, and then swing in for lethal, and that gets us to Mythic. My first time making it to Mythic ever on Arena. Here's the animation. Alright, so that was my first Mythic rank. First time I've ever gotten to Mythic rank before. This deck, I think, does have the great advantage of being a very linear engine. It does not necessarily care too much about what the opponent's doing. Really only 2 pieces of interaction here with Heliod's Punishment. I wouldn't really consider Fae of Wishes interaction. I think primarily this is a 1/4 flying that we're going to use to get in with like a Curious Obsession or maybe a Staggering Insight. I don't think that's really something that we want to consider to be like interaction per se, although it does give us a little bit of play in the late game. And just so that we're not drawing so completely dead most of the time in the late game. And the biggest question I find, aside from kind of how you want to configure your aura suite here, this one is kind of more balanced toward the card draw side with 4 of the Obsession, 4 Insight, and then kind of 3 of everything else from Cartouche, Eyes, Flight. The full 4 of All That Glitters. Obviously, this is one of the most powerful cards in the deck. And then looking at the mana base, I think what you might want to consider is how much do you want of Glacial Fortress versus how much do you want of Hengate Pathway. These really probably shouldn't even be in the same deck, if we're being honest, right? That the fact that Glacial Fortress just does not key off of the Hengate Pathway, because Hengate Pathway doesn't have the land types that we would need to allow Fortress to come in untapped. So it might be a situation where I'm just putting this in here now to try it out. It has bitten me at least one game where I had 2 Glacial Fortress and 1 Hengate, which meant that I had to play behind curve the whole game. But I think ultimately what you might want to do is kind of trim down the Glacial Fortress and just run the full 4 pathway, because that way you can be guaranteed. And the blue mana is not a huge need in this deck. Sometimes you need as many as 2 blue. So I think most of the time this is going to come in on white, and then every so often you'll play it on blue. But what I might do is something like that, where you're going back to 9-3 split between Plains and Island, and then you're doing no Glacial Fortress, 4 Hallowed Fountain, 4 Hengate Pathway, I think is the way to go with this deck, because that way you're never worried about Glacial Fortress coming in tapped on turn 1 and not allowing you to cast your Selfless Savior or your Alseid. So that's one thing that I think about a lot of times with aggro decks, and it's one of the reasons why I don't run Rootbound Crag in Gruul, although a lot of people do with a lot of success. I just find that Rootbound Crag is a real turn 1 liability, and sometimes, just that being able to, or having to just play off curve that little bit can make a huge difference. So that's my road to Mythic January 2021. I look forward to seeing myself back in the hunt in February. Now I'll get a chance to start in Platinum again instead of down in Gold. So hopefully things work out well, and I'll probably be playing the same deck behind the scenes to get back up to Mythic. So if you see that I've achieved that rank again next time, it's probably on the strength of this deck, because it's just so busted right now. And I think my win rate was something on the lines of like 60+% in best of 1 with the Blue White Aurus deck. I definitely came back to earth more today. I was closer to 50-50 today, but like I had a 14-6 day. That was pretty wild. So definitely a deck you want to check out if you're thinking about laddering. You want to have some play experience with it just to know how it functions, know how to beat it. I would definitely recommend crafting it if you have the wild cards. And apart from the mana base, which is definitely wild card intensive, the main rares in the deck are this group of them here, these sort of 11 rares right here. So something that people might be able to work up to. I guess the Luris pushes it to 12, but that's not main deck. So a total of probably 8, 9 plus the 11 here, so 20, like 21 rares. It's not terribly expensive. As far as historic decks go, it'd probably be a pretty good entry level model if you wanted to do some historic best of 1. You could definitely do worse than like saving up for this with your wild cards over time. That's gonna do it for this week on the historic feature. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for joining me on the path to Mythic. It's been a fun time. I look forward to seeing you back here next week for another fun deck to play, and I'll see you then. Bye, everybody.